I'm Williams Gamaker. I am an artist working in London. The name of my exhibition is Strange Evidence, which is also the name of the film which I'm showcasing. So Strange Evidence came about because it's the final part of a trilogy, which I'm calling the Critical Affection trilogy. I first focused on Anna May Wong, Hollywood star of Chinese-American origin, and then I made Thieves, which is about two film stars, both Anna May Wong and Sabu. Both of them were marginalised film stars of colour, but why I decided to make a film about Merle Oberon is that she too was a woman of colour, but she hid that throughout her life. So she passed as white until her death, when the secret that she kept came out. She identified as Anglo-Indian, and as a result, if anyone in the industry, really knew about it, that would have meant that she wouldn't have been a A-lister. She wouldn't have had the career that she had. She would have been marginalised into bit part roles, or would have only have played exotic characters. She was born in 1911, died in 1979. So the era in which she's most known is the 1930s to late 60s. And as a result, she just played incredible leading roles for a woman of colour. So she played the girl next door, the vamp, also exotic roles, but she was often the lead. And that kind of made my desire to kind of finally focus on a woman of colour who made that a key motivation for me, because unfortunately that came with strings, and it meant that she had to effectively hold a lie. And in finding out that that was her truth, I wanted to make a film that looked at both the body horror that she endured, and also to think about this idea of fictional healing, in which I would attempt to psychoanalyze Merle and give her a chance to explore her identity within a fictional therapeutic space. At the very heart of the show is the film Strange Evidence, which is the space of fictional healing for Merle Oberon. But outside of it is an imagined space of the psychoanalyst who is there to heal or attempt to offer Merle a space of therapy. So at the start of the show, you will encounter a study space, and that space begins a process of puzzling in which the psychoanalyst has his books and his interest in Egyptology. There's a large scenic painting of a film still of temptation, and there's also a film called Oberon, which is a casting film I made in 2023 for the Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger season, which really introduces Merle as a star. Merle was set to work with Powell and Pressburger on the Red Shoes, but she didn't have the dancing skills that Moira Shearer did, so she didn't get the role. But these are these speculative moments in which she could have been in the Red Shoes. As you move beyond the study, you will find a waiting room. That waiting room is full of clocks, and there's a soundscape which introduces clocks ticking and construction noises, and this idea that we are waiting and unearthing. And it really depends how you move through the show, but if you enter the film, you will be able to encounter a previous version of the film set embedded in the film, and just beyond that is the parlour, which situates some tables with puzzles and a kind of trompe-l'oeil painting of a kind of entrance to a tomb. So the idea is I'd love to invite the audience to sit and participate in the puzzles, maybe reflect on the film. There's tiny peepholes throughout the show, multiple viewpoints. You might be able to peek back into the viewing space through the fireplace, or if you're in the screening space, peep into the parlour. And finally, as you curve round, you'll weave your way through the kind of back end of the exhibition, which is a storage space full of old columns from my previous films and props from Strange Evidence and more puzzles. And the idea is that everything needs to be put together within the film Strange Evidence. The psychoanalyst needs to work out some anagrams, which Merle is offering tantalizingly to try to unearth some of her story. And in the same way, the exhibition is not meant to be an easy walkthrough. It's meant to be something that I hope the audience will try to make sense of through their own construction. Strange Evidence as a name came about because I often start with Wikipedia. I'm very open about that because it's often a space of fandom. You know, a lot of the pages on Wikipedia are made by fans. And as a result, I'd found in her filmography that she had a bit part role. But then I spoke to a film historian who told me, actually, that's highly unlikely. And I loved the fact that it was a kind of falsity. You know, I love that about trying to kind of understand a historical truth and realizing it's very much a construction. So archive-wise, I drew upon existing texts on Merle. They're very problematic texts, actually. So I always would take them with a pinch of salt. Merle's film ephemera led me to a lot of understanding of how she framed herself, how she spoke about herself as a performer. And I also drew quite strongly upon all the films that Merle had in her back catalogue. So key films would be the 1944, That Uncertain Feeling, a screwball comedy. I think that's from 41 actually. The film from 1946 called Temptation, which is a film noir, and it's set in Cairo. So running through the exhibition is a lot of Egyptology and references through scenic painting to film stills from Temptation. And indeed, there's an overlap with psychoanalysis because Freud bases his kind of interpretation and symbolism with dreams. He attributes that quite closely to ancient Egypt and their kind of myth-making. So if you ever go to the Freud Museum in London, you'll find many kind of ancient Egyptian amulets and objects, and I wanted to have this idea that we were kind of unearthing or excavating or puzzling along with Merle's history. There were some ethical considerations that I really wanted to hold on to in making this quite speculative, what I'm calling fictional healing. I wanted to not put words into Merle's mouth. So what I tried to do is draw upon interviews. I also drew upon a quite speculative biography. And I also spent time looking for interviews in which she'd given tidbits of information. And through that, I think, I can't be quite sure, but about 70% of my script is based on words that Merle either said through interview and even dialogue from films where, funnily enough, she's actually speaking about identity through the characters that she's performing. So there was about 70% in the words of Merle and about 30% artistic license. So in that way, I felt I upheld some ethics of privacy for Merle because actually she never gave away her identity, and within the film, Merle only speaks about her truth through anagrams and coded hints at her identity, and that kind of felt important to uphold. So yeah, for some time now, I've been really interested in this idea of the edge of fiction. I really love world building through making film sets, but there's something actually about the line with the labour really between where a story is about to be told through its props in waiting, and also through the moment in which decisions get made about who will perform, how they'll perform. Often that happens off-set, and some of those decisions happen on-set, but transparent structures and transparent labour structures are actually as important to me as the kind of cinematic reconstruction I'm thinking about with film history. So that actually led me to a show last year that I did at Matt's Gallery, in which we built a film set and invited members of the public throughout the exhibition to enter the space and listen to a script read, which effectively allowed the audience to listen to what would be filmed on the set. Halfway through the show, we closed the exhibition for a week, shot the film that you see at the MAC, and then we reopened it. And of course the set had moved a little bit and everything was slightly different, but I am very interested in leaving marks and traces of labour, and I'm very interested in collaboration as well, which is how any film is constructed. I have been collaborating with performers for years, such as Tara Shern and Catherine Lord and Mark Gillis. All of these performers have performed in previous works of mine, and Catherine Lord has been collaborating with me since 2010. That ongoing relationship of working with a performer enables a kind of shorthand in our work that we can kind of go deeper when we actually make it onto the set. But similarly, within the exhibition, you will see the paintings of an artist called Jamie Bragg, and I've been collaborating with Tara White, an artist who's been also supporting me as a production designer, and Sarah Pinheiro, who has designed the soundscape of this exhibition. And there's a making of film, which I'm very excited that the MAC have commissioned me to make, because that really shows the kind of transparency of the film set and how we make, or how I want to make, which is to always allow people into the film process, because I'm so aware that filmmaking, art in general, has so many barriers to entry, but specifically the film set is a very hierarchical space of conditions, and I'm sort of not interested in that. I want really to allow people to see how we make it, and for me, showing it actually strengthens the magic of the film. I think there are some contemporary comparisons to make with this kind of 1940s body horror film noir that I think Strange Evidence posits. I'd say that there's a lot of pressure on young people today to think about their image. That's the force and pressures of social media. I think that that has been an enduring influence of TV and film, that we have to look a certain way and be image conscious. So that's one comparison that I feel pushes people towards different kind of interventions. I mean, for poor Merle, she engaged in skin bleaching, she utilised makeup, she had lighting techniques developed for her by the cinematographer Lucien Ballard, an industry technique and lighting called the Obi, named after Oberon. It's still used today, that effectively draws light and attention to the eyes and whitens the face. So that's, you know, that's a complex makeup and lighting technology that still goes on today. I think that you could also argue that Merle, well, she never used prosthetics, but she really utilised dermabrasion, and that was something that in the 40s was so much more gruesome than it is today. Unfortunately, that meant a kind of literal grinding of the dermis, and that was to minimise scarring that she had through a almost career-ending car crash. and skin flare-ups caused by early forerunners to antibiotics. So she was continuously tending to the canvas of her face, and I feel that that is still prevalent today. It's different with Merle because she didn't participate in brown face like a number of white performers had to do, or use prosthetics, but she effectively is this kind of cuckoo in the nest, playing the English girl next door, or, you know, utilising costuming and her voice to pass. And I feel like when I speak to my performers, many of whom are of colour, they still speak about casting discrimination. I'm speaking to a number of performers who are still feeling an inequality, even though the industry gets better with every year. So I feel like we may never put this issue to bed, but hopefully we can improve it.